What could be better than waking up one day and magically having all of your student loans wiped out by the federal government? For most people with student loan debt, that is the ultimate dream. Hello and welcome to Practical Personal Finance, where you get the information you need to understand and succeed with money. In this video, I'm going to get you up to speed with everything you need to know about the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program for student loans that's offered by the federal government. I'll start out with a little bit about what the program is and what the benefits are. Then I'll tell you about the qualifications for student loan forgiveness under the program. And finally, I'll tell you about the process of actually getting your student loans forgiven once you've met all the requirements. Make sure you stick around until the very end, because that's when I'll familiarize you with an incredible resource that will make this whole process a lot easier. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, or PSLF for short, was introduced in 2007 as part of the College Cost Reduction and Access Act. It allows people who meet certain qualifications to discharge the balance of their student loans after 10 years of timely payments and full-time employment in a public service position. You've probably heard of PSLF if you've attended college, or you have a child who's attended college anytime in the past 15 years. And you probably view the program in a positive light. After all, what could be better than waking up one day and magically having all of your student loans wiped out by the federal government? For most people with student loan debt, that is the ultimate dream. But the reality is that, as we learned in 2020, fewer than 2% of applications for public service loan forgiveness have been accepted so far. That's right, out of over 150,000 people who genuinely believed that they were eligible for PSLF, only about 2,200 of them had their student loans forgiven. When I hear numbers like that, my immediate thought is, why? Why were so many applications rejected? Why did so many people believe they were eligible for PSLF when in fact they weren't? The answer has to do with people misunderstanding the requirements to qualify, and that's the topic I'm going to tackle next. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program forgives the remaining balance on your direct loans after you have made 120 qualifying monthly payments under a qualifying repayment plan while working full-time for a qualifying employer. That statement is coming straight from the Federal Student Aid website, and there are 5 key aspects that I want to highlight: direct loans, 120 qualifying monthly payments, qualifying repayment plan, full-time, and qualifying employer. Let's take a look at those one by one. First is direct loans. This is about the type of student loans that are eligible for the program. If you want public service loan forgiveness, you need to have direct loans, loans that were issued through the William D. Ford Federal Direct Loan Program. If you have FFEL program loans, they do not qualify, whether they're owned by the federal government or by a private lender. If you have Federal Perkins Loan Program loans, they do not qualify. If you have private student loans from a private lender, they do not qualify. The only loans that qualify are direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans, direct plus loans, and direct consolidation loans. Yes, you can get a direct consolidation loan to replace your FFEL program loans and your Perkins loans. And yes, that direct consolidation loan would qualify for PSLF. But payments on those other types of loans prior to the consolidation do not count toward the 120 monthly payment requirement, which we'll discuss next. You'll need to start with a clean slate if you get a new direct consolidation loan. And if you've already been making payments on your FFEL program loan or your Perkins loan for years, the thought of tacking on 10 more years of payments might not be too appealing. Next, let's talk about those 120 qualifying monthly payments. What is it that makes a payment qualify? 5 factors. First, the payment has to be from October 1st, 2007 or later. That's when the PSLF program went into effect. Payments from before then don't count. Second, the payment must be made under a qualifying repayment plan, which I'll discuss further in a few minutes. Third, the payment must be for the full amount due on your bill. Partial payments don't count, unless there are several partial payments that add up to the full amount. Fourth, the payment must be received within 15 days of the due date. Any later than that, and it doesn't count. And finally, the payment must be made while you're working for a qualified employer. More on that in a bit. Oh, and one more thing about these 120 payments. They do not need to be consecutive. If you're late on a payment or you're unemployed for a month or two, you can pick up right where you left off without losing any progress. Pretty nifty. Third, let's discuss what constitutes a qualifying repayment plan. There are 4 options, and all of them are based on your income. There's the pay-as-you-earn plan, the revised pay-as-you-earn plan, the income-based repayment plan, and the income contingent repayment plan. I'm not going to get into the details right now about what these plans are and how they work, but I will be covering that in a future video. If that's a topic you'd like to learn more about, let me know by giving this video a thumbs up and clicking that red subscribe button down below. Anyway, as long as you're enrolled in one of those 4 plans, your payments count toward the 120 required for public service loan forgiveness. In addition, payments toward most loans on the standard 10-year repayment plan also count. But unless you switch to an income-driven plan with reduced payments at some point along the way, your student loans would be paid in full after 10 years, and there would be no balance left to forgive. Fourth, let's touch on what it means to be working full-time. There are lots of definitions on what constitutes full-time employment status. For the purposes of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, you need to be working a minimum of 30 hours per week, or more if that's what your employer requires. You also have the option of working multiple part-time jobs for a minimum of 30 hours per week combined. Last but not least, we need to talk about what a qualified employer is. In my opinion, the qualified employer is the trickiest part about all this, because there are just so many different places you can get a job. I think it makes the most sense to break the qualified employers into 4 categories. First is government organizations at any level: federal, state, local, or tribal. This also includes the United States military. Second is 501c3 nonprofit organizations. Third is AmeriCorps and Peace Corps. And fourth is other nonprofit organizations that provide public services like early childhood education, law enforcement, and emergency management. That 4th category is where things start to get a little bit hazy. But don't worry, at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you how you can determine if your employer is eligible. And one more thing about qualified employers. For the purposes of PSLF, your employer is the organization listed on your pay stub. A lot of people do work for the government, but their paycheck comes from a private company. If you work for a government contractor like this, don't expect to qualify for public service loan forgiveness. You're going to be let down. Now that you understand the requirements to qualify for PSLF, I'm going to tell you how to go about actually getting your loans wiped out. Once you've made all 120 of your qualifying payments, you need to fill out and submit your application for the program. This next part is very important. At the time you submit this application, and at the time your loans are forgiven, you must still be working for a qualified employer. If you leave that employer before your application is accepted, you're going to have a bad time because your application is going to be rejected. I repeat, do not leave your job until your loans have been forgiven. One other thing you might be concerned about is the tax implications of having $50,000 or $60,000 of loans forgiven by the federal government. If you won that amount of money on a game show or in the lottery, you'd be liable for taxes on it. In the case of PSLF, the forgiven loans are not counted as income by the IRS, and therefore you will not owe any federal income tax on that money. It's one of the most beautiful parts of this whole process. And now, because I'm a man of my word, here's an amazing resource that will help you in your public service loan forgiveness journey. It's called the PSLF Help Tool, and it's available for free on the studentaid.gov website. This is where you can research your actual employer to determine eligibility and get an idea of how much progress you've made toward forgiveness. The tool generates something called a PSLF form, which you should be completing and submitting to the federal government on an annual basis. When you do, you'll get confirmation that each of your payments from the past year have counted toward the required amount, and you'll be able to monitor your progress in the PSLF program on the Fed Loan Servicing website. Are you working toward public service loan forgiveness? How many qualifying payments have you made so far? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, maybe you'll find my debt-free story inspiring. Click right here to learn about how I paid off over $175,000 in student loan debt in less than 2.5 years. And if you're not yet a PPF subscriber, what are you waiting for? Click right here to hop on board. As always, thanks for watching. I'm Andrew Shear, and I'll see you next time.